Bickley and Marotta mornings. Arizona sports. The local sports leader. Bickley Blast.
Every franchise has its blind spots. The Cardinals failed for nearly a decade trying to fix their offensive line. And for the Diamondbacks, their kryptonite is their bullpen, which is once again threatening to derail a season. Last night, it was a 5-run ninth inning, a collapse amplified by a strange decision from manager Torey Lovullo, who kept left-handed Andrew Chafin in the game to face 3 straight right-handed hitters. And when the smoke from the wreckage had finally cleared, well, they were all chafing. And yet Lovullo can be partially forgiven because really, what options does he have? This issue goes above Lovullo and lands on the desk of Mike Hazen, who is very good at his job, but clearly did not see how good this team was going to be after 50 games. Otherwise, he would have never opted for closer by committee, because closer by committee never works. Just like platooning quarterbacks never work. And we know better than anyone how bullpens turn into fire drills without clear definition of roles, without that one guy with electric stuff and a couple of screws loose, crazy enough to consistently get the last 3 outs in a baseball game. And by the way, those types of guys rarely available at trade deadline. And that's what makes this tailspin so frustrating, because this problem, shut up, Jared, is not a surprise to anyone. This issue we saw coming a mile away.
You know, this is kind of the carousel that's going on right now. Is it going to be Ginkel? Is it going to be Chafin? Is it going to be McGough? Is it going to be Castro? All 4 of those guys at different times have shined, but more importantly, all 4 of those guys at different times have really, really faltered. And it doesn't give you any kind of solution to this closer by committee. If you go into a season with closer by committee, I think by July 25th, especially when you're in the heart of a playoff chase, you would have hoped somebody would step up and take that role and just make the decision for you.
Yes.
That hasn't happened for Torey Lovullo and the Diamondbacks.
No, that has not. And games like last night where you've got victory sitting right in front of you, that last game in Atlanta, we've had a couple of games in Atlanta where the Diamondbacks got in the ninth inning, and those games leave a mark. Not all losses hit the same, and losses like last night hit really, really hard, because these are games that you should win, games that you probably deserve to win, and it just blows up on you at the end. It's a tough thing to deal with. And again, it complicates this whole trade deadline a little bit, because I think at the very least they need to address this, right? I mean, even if you could make a case that, maybe this is actually a blessing in disguise. Maybe what is happening now is clarifying exactly who this team is and what this team is about. But blowing games and blowing saves, that's a different matter entirely.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you don't serve your baseball team properly.
Because it's demoralizing. Yeah. And we talked about it last year.
Yeah.
A better bullpen, and we might have been talking about the Diamondbacks being a wild card team in 2022. That bullpen was not good last year. They changed the back end of it. Last year they went with Melanson and Kennedy. They moved on from those guys. Melanson's still part of the team, but he's been on the injured list all year long.
Right.
But the guys they brought in have been spotty at best. And the recent trend, I don't know if you saw Kellen Olson's tweet last night, but it kind of was eye-opening. 17 straight games, the Diamondbacks bullpen has allowed at least 1 run.
Wow.
17. In the last 10 games, which coincides with the beginning of the post-All-Star break schedule, 34 innings pitched for the Diamondbacks bullpen, 34 earned runs. That's a 9.00 ERA. Hard to win that way.
No, very.
And it's been hard because the record in that span, 2-8.
Yeah.
And the 2 wins they had were when Ginkel actually nailed it down in the 9th in Atlanta. Other than that, there's been no wins to be had, and the bullpen is right at the center. It's not the only problem.
No.
Torey Lovullo is scrambling, and hopefully Merrill Kelly comes back tonight, and that's the report that's out there. That'll be a huge boost and a big weight off the shoulders of this rotation that's tried to stay afloat and done an okay job in the interim. But, you got a bunch of players at the plate that are slumping at the same time. I mean, Lourdes Gurriel Jr. continues to slump. It's good to see Christian Walker go deep last night. Jake McCarthy has slowed down offensively.
Carson Kelly.
Yeah, Carson Kelly, who's going to play a lot, obviously. He continues to struggle at the plate. There's a lot of that line from Bull Durham and the meeting on the mound. We're dealing with a lot of bleep here.
That's very true. And again, it's the method of how you got there, because once again, the Diamondbacks are still in the playoff position. They did not lose any ground on the Giants. They're how many games? They're 5 games over 500 now? 7? What are they? They're 7 games over 500.
54 and 47.
They're 7. So they're still a good team on paper, but their margin for error is running out. You know what I mean? And this thing has got to get stopped and buttoned up. But think about that. Think about being a baseball manager now, dealing with an offense that's kind of hit and miss, quite literally lately, and then having to play the shell game of pick the right guy out of the bullpen on a nightly basis. That's stress, man.
It's very similar to like Monty Williams with the bench last year.
Yeah.
When you don't know who you can trust, you can't set up a rotation.
You're throwing darts
every game.
You're throwing darts.
But they're, like you said, Bick, and look, I'm discouraged by what I'm seeing from the Diamondbacks. It looks like they're regressing to the mean, falling to earth, whatever you want to use, but they're still in it. That's the reality of it.
Yeah.
I think you could be prudent if you're Mike Hazen and company, improve the bullpen, and not blow up everything. Like we had the Ohtani discussion earlier.
Trade for Shohei and make him a closer.
There are good relief arms that are out there.
Yeah. Trade for Shohei and let him pitch 9 innings every game.
Every
Don't
night.
worry about the bullpen.
If there's a team that needs a complete game, it's the Arizona Diamondbacks. But
oh boy, do they ever!
They've had like one 9-inning complete game in the last 5 baseball seasons, so don't count on that either.
Is that a real stat?
It's something ridiculously small like that. But there are good bullpen names out there. Keenan Middleton, again, who was here last year. He's with Chicago, the White Sox now. He could be available. Jordan Hicks, we saw him last night. Scott Barlow from Kansas City.
The Rockies have a bunch of guys they might unload.
They just traded one of them. They traded Pierce Johnson.
Oh, no.
Johnson?
One of our favorites here on the show. David Robertson from the Mets. Josh Hader from the Padres, if the Padres decide that they want to move on. Because he'll
have a really good one for that, too.
Josh Hader?
No, Pierce Johnson.
Tell us during the commercial break, Jared. It's Jared After Dark.
Jared After Dark.